I want to bring you some breaking news from Niger. We're getting reports that the French ambassador has left the country. His departure follows a military coup in July that overthrew former President Mohamed Bazoum. Niger's new rulers ended military cooperation with France and ordered its ambassador and troops to leave. Well, we've got Nicholas Hack, who's following the developments in Niger from Dakar. First, we're going to go to Natasha Butler, who's in the French capital. How is France reacting to its ambassador being ordered to leave?
Yes, well, first I should say that we are getting reports that the ministerial and diplomatic sources here in France have confirmed that the ambassador has left Niamey. That's being reported by French news agency AFP, because there had been some confusion over that a little bit earlier. And look, for France, you might say it's not a surprise. The French President Emmanuel Macron earlier this week in a television interview said that France would be withdrawing its ambassador, Sylvain Ité, within the coming days, and also withdrawing its 1,500 troops from the country. But all of this, of course, is something of a blow, a climb down by Paris, because for weeks we have been hearing from the French government, from the French president, that it would not give in to the demands of Niger's military rulers, that French troops and the ambassador leave the country. President Macron himself repeatedly saying that as far as Paris was concerned, the military rulers are not the legitimate authority in Niamey, and therefore Paris would not give in to any of their requests or demands. But clearly this is not the case. We have the ambassador on the way. We know that the withdrawal of troops could take several weeks, several months, and all of this just another difficult chapter for France's policy in Africa that has been so battered in recent years, with a number of coups in countries that were once former colonies.
Natasha Butler in Paris. Natasha, thank you very much. Let's go to Nicholas Hack. He's following developments from Dakar in Senegal. So the ambassador has gone. The French troops, as I understand it, and other foreign troops are still in Niger. What's the latest on them?
Well, look, this plane that took off from Niamey was long awaited. There's been protests outside the French ambassador's residence asking for him to leave. And so the French didn't want to have a scene. So he departed Niamey at 3:45 a.m. in the morning, away from public eye. There was no one allowed to film that scene. And then he went to N'Djamena, where there's a French military base. And then he's, as we heard, on his way to Paris. This is a small victory for the military junta led by General Chiani, who has asked for the ambassador to leave. That doesn't mean that it's the end of the diplomatic relationship between France and Niger. There is still the deputy in charge who will take over Sylvain Ité's role. But the departure of Sylvain Ité was a key demand by the military junta in Niger, who had wanted to see a reset of the relationship between Niger and France, on the diplomatic front, on the military front, and on the economic front. On the military front, there's 1,500 soldiers, as Natasha explained. Now, they're due to leave before the end of the year. But Niger's military junta has again reasserted that it wants to be done on its own timeline and not the timeline of France. Then there is the economic relationship. Niger is one of the biggest exporter of uranium in the world, and a French company, Orano, just in April discovered the biggest reserve, untapped reserve in Niger, in the area of Oumararen. And so the civil society actors in Niger are calling for a renegotiation of these economic contracts that have been in place for the last 50 years since independence. So there's a real urge from both the civil society but also Niger's military junta to overhaul the relationship both on the economic, military and diplomatic fronts with France.
Nicholas, thank you very much indeed. Nicholas Hack talking to us from Dakar.
Nomilile Ncebe says she was born in 1958. That's 36 years before apartheid ended in South Africa. When the governing African National Congress took power in 1994, politicians promised to address racial disparities in land ownership, services and housing. Nomi Lile is still waiting for her free brick house built by the government.
My family stays here in this house. It is not strong and it can collapse at any time.
There are people who have received free housing from the state. Andisa Jilaje is one of them. She said goodbye to her mud house 2 years ago.
I'm not happy with this house because it's very, very small. But now I'm so happy because I've got a big house. I'm so happy now.
Local officials say nearly half the people in this ward in the Eastern Cape province now live in proper structures.
If you have ever stayed in a mud house, you do not know what really you will do during the rainy season. You know, the house might fall. We used to have disasters here where houses were falling, and we used to have people who have to be placed in community halls. And now we no longer have those because we are trying by all means to speed up the process.
There are other challenges: unemployment and service delivery. People used to get water from a reservoir, but the pump was stolen more than 4 years ago and hasn't been replaced. And until services improve, they now have to use these shared taps. Some people choose to leave rural areas to find opportunities in towns and cities. Many of them end up staying in informal settlements where electricity is illegally connected to their shacks, which then catch fire. That's what happened here. The Eastern Cape is the birthplace of several prominent politicians, including Nelson Mandela. But millions here are still waiting for that better life they were promised at independence nearly 30 years ago. Harumutasa, Al Jazeera, Eastern Cape, South Africa.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.